This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzero, episode number 21.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast. This is your host, Jeff Pellizzero, and I hope you're having an unbelievable 2015 so far. I know that there are a lot of big things coming to 18 Strong, the website, the podcast, as we move forward with this year, and I hope that you guys have a lot of big plans for your golf game, for your health, for your fitness, and pretty much everything else under the sun. And speaking of health, fitness, and all that stuff, I've noticed kind of a change. Not really a change, but a little different shift in direction with the 18 Strong Podcast these past several episodes, and I really like where it's going. And that's the fact that, there's so many things that we focus on when we're working on training golfers and improving performance and improving speed and power and all that stuff. But when it boils down to it, for yourself, for the average golfer, for the high-level golfer, a lot of times the best thing that you can do is break it down and simplify what's going on in your life and the things that you're doing, and really living more of a healthy lifestyle and, implementing some better tactics as far as your nutrition, the things that you're putting into your mouth, the things you're putting into your brain, the thoughts that you're having, the way you practice, all that stuff. Just really living a more high-quality lifestyle and being more conscientious of what you're exposing yourself to can really make a difference in your performance on the course. And I'm talking about, your fitness level, your diet, all this stuff. So, we've had a couple episodes on the podcast here where it's not necessarily a fitness professional. We're talking with some people that are looking more at, just overall health. And that's why I'm so excited about our guest today. Because, his whole thing is he's not a golfer. He's not a golf instructor. He's really not tapped into the golf world at all. But I think you guys are really going to appreciate what he brings to the table today. And his name is Shawn Stevenson. And Shawn is a best-selling author of the book Sleep Smarter. He's the host of the -- health and fitness podcast on iTunes. It's called The Model Health Show. And he's also been seen on the TED stages doing a TED Talk. And the guy just really breaks the nutrition game down very simply, which helps to improve your performance. But today's episode is really going to focus on something that's not talked about a lot in the golf world, and really even in the fitness and nutrition world all that much, and that's the importance that sleep has on, how your body responds. And basically, Shawn's got a great story, his background, how he got into nutrition and fitness and health, and then how he, got into the whole podcasting thing and got on iTunes and has become really an internationally known speaker. But he describes how sleep can really be what he likes to call the secret sauce in your performance, in your health, in your life. And that's why I titled this episode, Sleep is the Secret Sauce. And it really boils down to the fact that if you're not getting good sleep, you're probably jacking up your body in all kinds of ways. And that can be your hormones, your diet, inability to lose fat, inability to recover properly from workouts and practice sessions, your mental game's off, all that stuff. So, it all kind of falls under what I like to deem now that the stronger your life is, the stronger your golf is. And I'm really kind of taking that mantra and looking at more guests that we can bring onto this show that fall into that category of not just the golf fitness, not just the performance on the course and training specifically for golf, but also what are the things that we're missing, and maybe that as a fitness professional and someone in this industry I'm a little more tapped into than you as the audience, and that I can bring some special guests that you may not run across. And that's why I love the fact that Shawn was able to come on the show today. So I do want to jump in real quick and give a quick iTunes review, one of the most recent ones that we got, which is by Matt McWilliams, which just came in on January 8th. It's a 5-star review, and it just says, wow, the 18 Strong Podcast is flat out awesome. Good production quality, easy to listen to. Very impressed, Jeff. Keep bringing it. So, Matt, I thank you very much for leaving a review, and obviously everybody else that has left a review. I love reading them. They really give me inspiration to keep putting out great content and finding great guests. So once again, thank you. Also, another little bit of housekeeping. 18 Strong is now on Twitter. It's not just me, Jeff Pellizzaro, on Twitter. 18 Strong is officially on Twitter, so look us up, follow us, and we'll be pushing out all the content from the blog, from the podcast, and tweeting, retweeting a bunch of good stuff, good quality information that I find and that others in my circle find, as far as great information from the fitness side, the mental game side, all that, all to help improve your golf game. So with that being said, and no further ado, I would like to introduce my buddy Shawn Stevenson. Hey Shawn, welcome to the 18 Strong podcast.
Hey Jeff, thank you so much for having me on.
You bet, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. I've become a huge fan over the past, 3 months or however long it's been since I heard you initially. I believe it was on Pat Flynn's podcast. And, my wife, I think, heard you first. She's like, hey, you got to listen to this Shawn Stevenson guy. I think you'll really like him. I listened to the episode, and I was like, man, I just love your message. I love everything you're doing. And wanted to, at that point, I was like, Susan, I'm gonna try to get him on my podcast. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm going to try to do it. And then, sure enough, I'm listening to an episode. You said something about being in Florissant, Missouri, and drinking well water, spring water out of Florissant, Missouri. I'm like, wait a second, this guy is way too close to home to not get in touch with him. So for all of you listeners out there, if you, I know a lot of you know who Shawn is, but for those that don't know, Shawn is a fitness and nutrition expert. He's the host of the Model Health Show, which has been #1 in iTunes health and fitness category. And he's from the ShawnStevensonModel.com. Also a best-selling author, Sleep Smarter, which is a book we're going to talk a lot about. Shawn, welcome. I'm going to have you give a little background of yourself so that the audience gets to know your story and gets to know you.
Sure. I mean, what a great story. I mean, even you finding out that I live here. Most people, if I do a speaking event in my own town, because I travel a lot and speak, people think that I'm flown in from somewhere. It's like, no, I just live down the street. So it's no accidents, man, that you live close and us connecting. And I'm really honored and appreciate being here on the show. And I guess just to give a little bit of background, I'll just do the short version. So for me, my whole just deep dive into nutrition and fitness and overall health and longevity began for me when I was 20. And the reason that longevity mattered when I was 20 is because I was diagnosed with a spinal condition where the doctor told me that I had the spine of an 80-year-old, right? And so I'm 20 when I get this news. And for me, that translated to a lot of pain. I couldn't do the things that I was normally doing. I was an athlete. I just loved sport. I loved anything where I could compete. And it was just overnight just kind of taken away from me. It was sort of gradual, but then the pain point reached that place where I wasn't able to do it without just very, very poor mechanics and a lot of pain. Because one of the things and one of the takeaways today is that when your body is imbalanced, you will overcompensate in other areas. So if I can't do a particular movement, my body will overcompensate and I'll get muscle imbalances in different parts of my body to try to balance things out. And that sets you up for long-term problems. So fast forward, 2.5 years go by, only got worse, saw 4 additional doctors, there's 5 total, same story. And this is where I get to the place of, I'm tired of giving my health away and what's possible for me to these physicians who mean well, but they were doing something called a nocebo effect. And you've probably heard of a placebo effect, right, Jeff?
Right, absolutely.
So the nocebo effect is similar to the placebo effect, except this is a negative injunction. A placebo effect is a positive injunction where you believe something is going to do something good for you. A nocebo effect is where you believe something negative is going to happen. And nocebo effect is very well studied now, like when a doctor gives a diagnosis that someone has, 3 months to live. Most people die within that 3 months, except the people who choose to believe differently, because our brains are very, very powerful in influencing our hormonal cascade, what our cell metabolism is doing. I'm a very scientific-minded person. I don't like airy-fairy stuff, like somebody just told me to believe something and it happens. I'm looking at the science behind it. So he gave me this nocebo effect that I couldn't get better, and I believed it. But I choose to change and believe something different. And so from that moment, I decided to learn every single thing that I could about health and the human body. So for me, I was in college at the time, luckily, so I was able to shift over my course of study from marketing, whatever random thing it was, to biology and kinesiology. And that's where I pursued the rest of my degree. And I initially went to college as pre-med, but I just figured I didn't really like science very much, which the funny thing is my whole life now. It's just really how you're taught, So I shifted my course of study and studied externally 95% more than I did in school. The schoolwork was nothing to me. Like I had that stuff down, but I studied the stuff outside of school of how does this apply to my life? So studying physiology and anatomy, how does that transfer over to what I'm doing here in the gym, for example? When we're talking about nutrition in class, how does this transfer over to how I'm experiencing life? And just to wrap this story up, 6 weeks go by, man, and I lose 30 pounds. And over the course of 2.5 years, I had put on a nice amount of fat. It was not good weight. So I was looking puffy and not the sexiest person. Being a guy was definitely not feeling great about myself. And so this 30 pounds just flew off of me. This is not typical, but it was just not supposed to be on my frame. And the pain was gone. It was as if nothing had ever even happened before. And I went back to get a scan of my spine a few months later, and the doctor's just blown away. Like, he's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I've never seen this before. And so another big takeaway I want to share with everybody, just to wrap the story up, is that one of the things that I did is understanding this. Your body requires the raw materials that it needs to rebuild you. Okay, your body requires the raw materials that it needs to rebuild you. It's just like your house. If you need to get some work done, on your deck or on your windows, you've got a broken window. If you don't bring in the new materials to fix it, you're just going to have problems at your home. You're just going to have this damage, and you can't fix it unless you have the raw materials. Your body works the same way. This is why the nutrition is so critical. And so I looked into, okay, what is my spine made of? What are the discs in my back made of? And flooded my body with those nutrients, and your body knows what to do. So that's just one of the fundamental things, man. It's a pretty diverse and interesting story, but it really boils down to understanding that we are in so much control over the way that we feel, the way that we perform, how our bodies regenerate, and even, just creating those neural pathways to be a better athlete, to be a better golfer. It really boils down to just getting these real powerful principles, applying them to our life every day, and you'll see the results for yourself.
I love your story because so many people that are listening to this can probably relate in one way or another. We've all been to the doctor. We've all been given our medications. We've all had some kind of a nagging issue that, we're looking to get fixed. We want that quick fix, which is, the reason why we take those medications and things like that. But, you had an injury, a disability that could have just wiped you out, and you could have taken a whole different path. But you decided, let's take it by the horns, let's kind of figure it out, and let's start treating the body properly, and let's just see if that works. And obviously, we're changing beings. Our body wants that balance. It creates that balance. And so by giving it the right stuff, I love the rebuilding with the raw materials, using that to then get yourself back on that horse and go is a story that I think so many people out here listening to this episode can really take home. And, some people are probably thinking, well, why did a nutritionist, a guy who's been through all this, why did you then delve into this whole area of sleep? And why did you, as I love to hear you say, you wrote the book on sleep?
Oh man, wow. There's basically two answers to that. The first answer is, here I'm at my clinic now, and I've had the opportunity to work with a few thousand people, and seeing everything ranging from, and by the way, with my title, of being a nutritionist, many people see me as like the doctor's doctor. Many of my patients over the years have been, MDs or chiropractors or other types of physicians. And a lot of amazing people turn to me for coaching. And I've done the same with others as well. I've learned from the best. And that's really what part of my modus operandi is learn from the best. I don't want to learn from the fifth best if I can get access to the best,
Absolutely.
And that's really kind of transferred over into my life in many ways. But anyway, so back to the sleep thing is, here in my clinic, I would notice, okay, so we've got patients coming in. It might be for diabetes. It might be for helping them to get off their statin medication. So like their Lipitor or maybe lisinopril for the blood, whatever it might be, the metformin for their diabetes, or if they just generally want weight loss. I would look at what's going on. I'd do a nice assessment. And then I would see, if certain individuals are eating a relatively good nutrition approach, they're exercising oftentimes too much, why are they not getting the result? And typically what I would see is that there's a hole in one of two things, usually both. Hole number one is stress, because you can either eat your way fat, you can under-exercise your way fat, or you can stress your way fat. And then the other hole was a lack of sleep. And not just a lack of sleep, because the hours don't matter as much, and that's what we'll talk about today. It's the sleep quality, because of all the other random stuff. It was just not dialed in. It was not optimized. And the truth was their body was not recovering from the stuff that they were doing during the day. Even if they're doing great things for their body, your body really changes while you're asleep. So just me wanting to see success with my clients was the first driving force for me to create this book. The second thing was, when I really got this, it's just like I thought back to my story. When I got well, I went from being this college student who was, up eating Papa John's at midnight and playing Madden till 3 a.m, right? And just like hoping that I can get my health and my life back, and just this very strange kind of surreal life. And then to the point where I made that decision to get well. When I made that decision, and I put a plan together, and I started to, first of all, your body requires movement for you to heal. Your body requires movement for it to heal itself. Right? And there's many studies to affirm this. So I started to move again. I changed the way that I was eating. And naturally, my sleeping habits totally changed. My healing occurred because the healing happens while you're asleep. And I naturally started to get up earlier and go to bed earlier. I didn't have any parent or anybody overbearing or watching over my shoulder and telling me what to do. I just did it. And it wasn't even a goal. It was like, oh my goodness, like this is the secret sauce, is sleep. And this is the category. And I want to share really one quick point, because I don't want this to be missed, is that, so when I'm saying that sleep is where you're healing, to give a good example of this is, a lot of people feel that when they go to the gym, they get in shape when they go to the gym, right? But the truth is, when you walk through the doors at the gym, you're in better shape than when you leave the gym. You're in better shape when you first get there because you're breaking your body down, right? So to give the example, I like to give this example. After your workout, after your nice workout at the gym, you're doing your squats and your bench press, and I take you in and we go do a blood panel. Your inflammatory biomarkers are going to be off the charts. Your hormones, if we could do a hormone panel, your cortisol is going to be off the charts, your stress hormones. I might even get you diagnosed with an illness. And you did nothing other than just do a tough workout, right? But your body doesn't, right now, it's not showing the results. Your body changes while you're asleep. This is the real deal right here. And this is when your body releases the majority of your growth hormone, your repairing hormones and enzymes. Truly, the change in your physical health, even in your golf game, which we could talk about. I've got something really just mind-blowing to share about that. It all really happens and changes and becomes a part of you while you're asleep. So that's the real reason that I set out to make this book.
Yeah, when I first started listening to your stuff, and by the way, it's kind of surreal doing this podcast because I literally listened to, I'm trying to catch up on all the Model Health shows pretty much. So a couple times a week, I'm listening to you in my earbuds on the way to work, doing whatever. So first of all, this is really cool just to have you and share the knowledge, because I'm a physical therapist. I'm a fitness professional. Yeah. I've worked with tons of athletes and general population. And I can honestly say that I've learned so much over the past few months, just like you're saying, you work with doctors, chiros, all that. because you tie this stuff in a different way. And I hope you guys as the audience can kind of see why Shawn's podcast has been so successful, because he breaks this stuff down to the point where you can understand how it's really affecting your daily life. And so I've made changes in my own sleeping patterns. And, my wife would tell you that I used to be a guy who was, up till 11 at night, up at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, whatever, because, always constantly trying to get things done, spend time with the family, that type of stuff. And after reading your book, it's almost like you just kind of learn these little tricks about how it's going to make you that much more productive and effective by getting to bed a little bit earlier, getting up and having your morning routine and things like that. So, just those little things, which we're going to get into a few hacks that you might suggest for people as far as, bettering just their daily lives. But let's jump into the golfer, because you mentioned that, and obviously this is a golf fitness podcast. Why does a golfer care about sleeping and better quality sleep?
Awesome. So the first glaring thing when I thought about this is I've had the opportunity to learn from a lot of people regarding brain health and memory and muscle memory, this whole concept of muscle memory. And what you want to be as a golfer is to be consistent.
Absolutely.
That is the key. That's the key word and key goal for, longevity and for performance, is to be consistent. And so what that really means is we want to get that brain change. We want to get that pattern, that neuromuscular pattern. And this literally happens while you're asleep. Any technique, any tweak to your game, any coaching, any strategy that you learn, we'll just say in this day, today, if you learned a strategy or you practice something, right? So today you did a practice, it doesn't actually become a part of who you are. It's in your short-term memory right now. It actually gets converted. It's a process called memory processing that happens during REM sleep. Well, not all REM sleep, all of the REM sleep, but the majority of it happens during REM sleep, is when your short-term memories get converted into your long-term memories. So whatever you're learning to better your game doesn't actually even become a part of you or a part of your memory or your neuromuscular pattern until you sleep. It is literally that important. And so let me clarify something, because I don't want to just throw words out, because people hear REM sleep. I used to hear REM sleep all the time. Like, what is that? Is it like REMs? I don't get it. So REM sleep, that's REM, and that stands for rapid eye movement. So during REM sleep, your eyes are basically moving pretty rapidly. So if you're one of those people that sleep with your eyes open, you're creepy, by the way. But, so we would be able to see that your eyes are moving frequently. And so rapid eye movement sleep. So that's REM sleep. And there's basically, for conventional understanding, there's 4 stages of sleep. Stage 1 and 2, that's REM sleep, okay? So there's different variations of that. And this has to do with your brainwave frequency, your brainwave pattern. Stages 3 and 4, this is known as deep sleep, AKA non-REM sleep, right? That stage of sleep is where your body's producing the vast majority of your anabolic hormones. Okay, so when people hear anabolic hormones or they hear HGH, especially the guys out there that are paying attention to SportsCenter, we usually tie that to Barry Bonds, Jason Giambi, Marion Jones, The Rocket, Roger Clemens. So we're tying it to athletes that are taking something, PEDs. But the truth is your body produces this stuff endogenously within itself. And it's just understanding stages 3 and 4 sleep is where your body produces the most human growth hormone, okay, HGH. It gets secreted by your pineal gland, all right? So powerful. I'm sorry, your pituitary gland, wow. So your pituitary gland secretes the majority of that while you're in stages 3 and 4. So what our goal is, if we're going to be a better athlete, is the REM sleep is pretty easy, okay? That's pretty easy because you can go to sleep. Right? Well, actually, let me say this a little bit differently. There's a difference between getting deep sleep and passing out. If you pass out just from being tired, you can get REM sleep. But to get yourself into stages 3 and 4, that's the art. And nowhere in my book do I say, you need to get 7 hours or 9 hours, whatever, any fill in the blank hours. It's do these things so that you can get into stages 3 and 4 more frequently, because that's going to change your life. Right? HGH is known as the youth hormone. This is why kids have so much energy. You've got to have your energy up if you're going to be trotting around for 18 holes over and over and over again. You don't want to be lagging behind. As a matter of fact, there's going to be somebody out there that's grinding harder than you are, so you've got to have your energy up. And it's not that when we get older, well, according to the research, around the age of 18 to 20, we have a sharp decline in the amount of human growth hormone we produce. Now, the question is it because I got older? Or is it because I got older and I decided that I'm not going to sleep anymore, or I'm not going to sleep like I need to because mom and dad aren't telling me to go to bed, right? So that's when we get a little bit older and we're like, you can't tell me what to do anymore. I'm just going to stay up and watch TV all the time, And that's really in combination with that decline. So if people understand this, that when you start to create your life or optimize your sleep in a way that you get into stages 3 and 4 longer and more frequently, this is when you're essentially turning back the clock in some form or fashion, but what you're really doing is delaying the aging process significantly, right? So there's so much power in this stuff. And of course, next up, we can get into some of the strategies on how do we actually get into that stages 3 and 4 more frequently.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump into that. And then I also want to hear what are some of the bigger mistakes that people are making that, they think they need to get more sleep, or they know they need to get more sleep. They think they might be doing all the right things, but where are some of the misconceptions that we have? Okay,
so let's start with, so do you want to do some strategies first, or do you want
me to? Let's do some strategies first.
Okay. All right, so something really simple, and I like to start with the simple stuff first and foremost that everybody can relate to and everybody can do. It's a really interesting study, and I cited this in the book. It's a study out of Appalachian State University showing that exercisers, they took exercisers and split them up into 3 different groups. Exercise group A exercised at 7 a.m. Group B exercised at 1 p.m. Group C exercised at 7 p.m. And what they discovered at the end of the trial is that exercisers from Group A, the ones who exercise early in the morning, got up to 75% more time in stages 3 and 4 sleep. Okay? So this is like a huge leverage point for you to understand that if you do some physical activity in the morning, some exercise in the morning, you will sleep better at night. All right? Super powerful. And it might be even counterintuitive because a lot of people think like, if I work out late at night, I'll be tired, so I'll go to sleep. Again, there's a difference between passing out and going to sleep, So, and as a matter of fact, the research indicates that melatonin, well, when you exercise, especially strenuous physical activity, you're secreting more stress hormones, cortisol. When cortisol is up, melatonin, your sleep hormone, your get good sleep hormone, goes down. It's the opposite. These two things work. It's literally like a seesaw, right? It's a seesaw. So when cortisol is up, melatonin is on the ground, okay? So we need to get cortisol down and melatonin up. So by you exercising in the morning, and I put a diagram of the normal human cortisol cycle in the book, your cortisol, if you're just operating as a normal human being, will be highest in the morning between around 6 and 8. It's going to peak. Melatonin is going to be at the ground. If you do some activity in the morning, this helps you to get that peak, encourage that peak to reset your rhythms, because it literally just works on a cycle, all right? So doing that, then that will reset you so that your melatonin is higher in the evening. Now, what a lot of people do is, they're tired and wired, is what I call it. So they're up at night because cortisol is up. They'll have these intentions on going to bed early, but they just feel energized and they're like watching TV, playing around on YouTube or on the internet. And this is a good way to reset that. And so the big walk away and takeaway for everybody is every morning, this does not mean that you need to hit the gym, by the way, if that's not your thing. If this is your gym time, go for it. But do some physical activity. This could be just getting up and doing some body weight exercises, some push-ups and some squats. Or I like to use the rebounder, which is a mini trampoline. And I use that because NASA confirmed that it's the most effective form of exercise for human beings.
Pretty smart, guys.
right? Rocket scientist, right? So I'll use that, especially during the winter time, especially here in St. Louis where we are. Or I'll get out and do a power walk when the weather is becoming of that, So when the weather is inviting for me, I'll get out and do like a 20-minute power walk and listen to an audio book or a podcast. Maybe it could be when you listen to a podcast like this to get your education on golf on, or another podcast to help you with your craft. So I'll leverage that time. This could be you just do a Tabata, which is a 4-minute exercise. You could do that. Or, if you want to get fancy and into the new things, you could do like yoga or something. There's so many different things that you can do, but do something to encourage that cortisol spike in the morning, and it's going to help you to sleep better at night. And that's the first and easiest tip to implement.
All right. And so I like the clarification there that it doesn't mean you have to go do your, 5 sets of 5 on squats and your pull-ups and all that stuff. Just getting moving, get out of bed, maybe have your cup of coffee, whatever you want to do, and then just move. I know you've talked so much, and you had Kelly Starrett on recently just about, the importance of us all moving and getting down on the floor and making our body go through these different positions to functionally make ourselves better and help live our lives. But the fact that it just increases that cortisol as well is just another benefit to then get you back on that cycle. And I think we're so busy these days. We've got so many different things going on. And this is one of the things that I've taken out of your stuff so much is trying to kind of appreciate that cycle and let my body kind of work the way that it's supposed to and shut it down at night and get it kind of jacked up in the morning. And it's just it makes the brain work better. It makes the body work better. So, all right, what's number 2?
Yeah. Okay. So number 2 would be, and thank you for adding on to that. It's really, we're talking about right now evolutionary biology. It's how you're designed. The human unit, only within the last few decades have we been able to like trump the cycle of day and night. Like we can literally just light our house up like it's daytime, whenever we want. And just even a few decades, 100 years ago, just like our great-grandfathers or great-great-grandfathers didn't have electricity like this, and when it's dark, it's dark. You could light a candle, but, it's just kind of falling back in pattern with this, so that cortisol secretion in the morning is for the sole purpose of you doing activity. The next tip really has to do with that as well. And I might have said that number 1 is the easiest to implement. This is even easier. Number 2 is to understanding that light and dark cycle. When you're asleep, your room environment is very, very important because your skin. So some people, for example, if they're bothered by light or other stuff is going on, they'll get an eye mask. The problem is that your skin has photoreceptors. And photo meaning light, and then receptors meaning something that can pick up or read. So your skin can actually pick up and sense light. And so if you're sleeping in a room and you've got like your neighbor's porch light and you've got cars driving up and down the street with their headlights or whatever the case might be, and that light is getting into your room, then that light data is hitting your skin and it's sending signals to your brain indicating that, this could be dawn. It could be it could be somewhat daytime. So your body's going to produce more daytime hormones, namely cortisol. And what this is going to do is suppress your melatonin. All right, so huge tip, super easy. And guys, you've probably experienced this before. When you travel, you go on a vacation, you got a nice hotel room with those blackout curtains, and you sleep like a baby, like you sleep like in a cave. You have that even deep, dreamless sleep sometimes. And we think it's just because you're on vacation. It's actually because you're sleeping in a dark environment for the first time. So get some blackout curtains. Get some blackout curtains and get your room pitch black, and sleep in like the bat cave and like the man cave, right? Create like a sleep cave in your room. And that was the number 1 thing for me personally that instantly changed my sleep quality, sleeping in a pitch black room. And there are so many studies, just more studies coming out. It's more exciting for me because I wrote the book on this, but now there's so much more data coming out affirming what I've already put together for everybody to just kind of take away and use. So this can be anywhere from like just hopping on Amazon to get them, or Target, or Target, AK Target, whatever. You can go there, but of course, get the right size. It's really as simple as that. That's going to help improve your sleep quality dramatically, because this goes back to evolutionary biology. Your genes expect you to sleep in darkness when it's dark.
And we're talking like dark. So I know you've mentioned even the alarm clock you use, having using your phone as your clock or alarm clock and that type of stuff too, right?
Yeah. So I've got a complete dimmer shut off on my alarm clock. But the funny thing is, 99% of the time I don't have to. My alarm is on, but my body is just in such a sync. Like I wake up like 10 minutes before the alarm goes off every day, because your body knows what to do and get into these patterns. So light sources in your room is not a good idea. And that's another tip as well, is to get the electronics out of the room. And this lends itself to understanding all the new data coming out about electromagnetic fields, and understanding that these devices are kicking off what's termed now as electric noise that has been proven to cause disruption between the cells in your body. Okay, so this is why, we might have seen stories or movies or heard situations of people having homes under power lines and them developing cancer tumors, right? So this is because we are a bioelectrical entity ourselves, and we're conductive. We're basically like a bag of water and minerals, like a walking, talking bag of water and minerals. We're sort of like a battery. And so these electric fields, like even your cell phone. So I love my iPhone. It's right here. It's my friend. But at the same time, we've got like a love-hate relationship, right? Because it says on the box to not put this up. It's like you're supposed to keep it 5 inches away from your head. What? Who does that? Nobody does that.
I've never even heard that.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I didn't check on my box for this iPhone or in the manual for this iPhone, but for my old phone, my last phone, which was not an iPhone, this one's so much better. It said that to not keep it directly on your head. It's so crazy, but nobody does that. It's because we know that radiation, the waves, whatever low-level microwaves, whatever people want to say that it's not strong enough, it actually is. This is why they even give you a warning. And also the research indicates that it does in fact heat up your brain, So anyways, having that phone by your head, there was a video that went around recently, I don't know if you saw it, of this girl. She was like, teenager, and she had her phone in her bed, and it straight caught on fire, and it burned a hole through her pillow in the exact shape of her cell phone.
No way.
Yeah, and this was like on the Today Show and all over the place. And the question is not so much like, okay, that happened, but why did it happen? Why is this girl sleeping with her phone? And so many of us have our phone as like our electronic teddy bear right there. And so I encourage people to get the devices out of your room. In particular, let's move on to something that's more relevant for a lot of guys that are listening, is that television, right? The research shows that couples who have a TV in their bedroom have 50% less sex. Okay, just let that sink in for a minute. All right? Couples who have a TV in their bedroom have 50% less sex. Now, if I were you and I have a TV in my bedroom, I would immediately pause this and go get the TV, right? Because it's a distraction, and we're creating an environment. Humans are very, very powerful species, because we create these neural associations very, very quickly. So if our brain has, let me give you an example. I love this example because this happened to everybody. Jeff, so just say you leave your office and you're heading home, and how long is your drive?
About 25 minutes. 25
minutes. Have you ever left the office, driven home, and you don't really remember the process of getting to your house when you pull up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it happens for us all pretty much every day after we've taken that drive just a couple of times, because your brain connects that neural association and it puts it on autopilot. Our minds are always looking for ways to free up other space, right? So it'll put that on autopilot. And literally, like, you can be eating a sandwich, talking on the phone, whatever, and the next thing you know, you're at home. It's just like, what? How did I get here, And so the brain does the same thing with our sleeping environment. If you've created a neural association to when you walk in your bedroom, it's the hub of the house. It's where you go to do work. is where you kick back and watch television. You're creating a neuroassociation tied to that instead of tied to sleep. Or the other S, so it's two vitamin S's I talk about. Vitamin S, number one is sleep, the other one is sex. So your environment, you should create a space to where it's for those two purposes, and there's a neuroassociation attached to that for you and your significant other. It makes your life so much better. I promise you this. I've worked with thousands of people. Many bettered relationships are a result of applying some of these tactics, because the truth is this too, is that when you're tired, your best friend can look like your worst enemy, and getting this thing together is not just going to benefit you, but it's going to benefit them as well, and vice versa. So these are some powerful tips just to kind of get people started with, but there's so many, there's 21 with different facets in the book, and it's all broken down in a way that's easy to digest. And yeah, man, so there you have it.
Yeah, and I highly, highly, highly suggest, and we'll have links to it in the show notes and everything, that you guys check out the book, because we're just touching on, a small percentage of what's going on. And Shawn, you've alluded to so many different things, and this is why I wanted to bring you on the show, and this is what I see the 18 Strong podcast kind of turning into, is a way to bring in experts like yourself that maybe aren't necessarily in the golf world, in the golf niche, but bringing your expertise and shedding some light on a lot of these different topics. The importance of the hormones and sleeping and diet, and that's what I love about your stuff, is how it's all tied together. It's not just a sleep book. This is, as you say a lot, it's a life book. And this is kind of one of those classes that it's like taking a college level class on fitness, nutrition, health, recovery, all that stuff. I know I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, but I did want to touch on just a couple other things that I know in the golf world are a big deal, or at least for a lot of the clients that I run into and people listening to this podcast. One being the effects of alcohol on your sleep and how that impedes your recovery, and then also just tying in a little bit more of the hormones and all that, how it's related to fat loss and nutrition, insulin resistance, all that stuff.
Got it. Okay, well, let's start with the alcohol, with the booze. It's not that I'm not a fan. It's more so I'm a researcher and I'm looking for the truth. I'm looking for, how does this stuff actually work? And it is absolutely true that alcohol will help you to fall asleep faster. And there are many individuals, and even probably a few people listening, that they have that habit, they have that pattern of drinking alcohol to help to nudge them to sleep. But here's the stark reality, is the fact that alcohol can indeed help you to fall asleep, but it will inhibit you from getting into stages 3 and 4. All right, so alcohol literally has an effect on the human brain and the human nervous system and the human endocrine system that will block you from getting that adequate time in stages 3 and 4. And that's the real anabolic state. Okay, and we'll come back to that. So this is where you really recover. This is why the concept of having a hangover is even in our lexicon. It's something that a lot of people know about. It's because they're not getting that stages 3 and 4 recovery sleep. Right? It's because of the alcohol blocking that process. So what I recommend in the book is, and I give different strategies on how to better consume your alcohol, because I'm not Captain Anti-Fun. That's not me. As a matter of fact, when I'm saying get the TV out of your room, I'm saying you get to have more sex. I'm giving the benefit, and not just like, I'm not into taking things away from people. So how can we optimize this stuff so that we can feel better? Right? So I give strategies in the book on how to do that. And one of the easy, simple ones is to have a little bit of a curfew, to give your body some time to process that alcohol so that it doesn't interrupt your sleep. So maybe that means, drinking a little bit earlier, hitting the happy hour instead of a late night bender, so little things like that. So you can still enjoy and get that good head change that you want to get and have fun and do whatever it is you're trying to do. Be social, but at the same time, you're not messing up your own gains, your own results, your own golf game, your own physical changes, just because you just didn't know this stuff. So now to shift gears and to kind of talk about the hormonal aspect. So I just mentioned that Sleep is known as the anabolic state, in particular, deep sleep. Okay, the anabolic state. So what does that mean? Anabolic basically means the building up of. Catabolic is the opposite. It means the breaking down of. Being awake is catabolic. Just being awake, period, is catabolic. We need that balance. It's like the yin and yang, you know? So we need that balance to make us a healthy, sovereign human being. So in this anabolic state, we've got a few things happening. We already mentioned HGH, but now let me shift gears and talk about an important hormone. And before we even get into the physical change happening, this hormone called insulin. So when people hear the word insulin, they tend to think of diabetes. And it's important for that, but it's important for every single human being because insulin is your body's energy storing hormone. And basically, it's like a key and it opens your cell so that glucose can get into your cells, energy can get into your cells. All right, so it's like a key. Now, the issue is that when I say energy, I'm also meaning fat. Okay, so insulin is also your body's number one fat storing hormone. Okay, so if insulin is on, you're storing fat. Okay, and this is just going on, period. All right, now, what happens for a lot of people is they hear these terms, but they don't understand how does that even apply to me. So the number one food category that turns insulin on is carbohydrates. Okay, protein can do that in a way through a process called gluconeogenesis, where proteins like your muscle can actually get broken down and turned into glucose. But carbohydrates, so across the board, whether it's a banana or it's a bagel, carbohydrates turn on insulin. So your body's going to be having greater propensity towards storing fat. So please understand, I'm not saying that a banana is bad for you. I'm saying that if you don't want to store fat, you probably want to eat lower glycemic foods that don't have that drive to turn on insulin. Okay, so now we're getting into conversation of like the glycemic index, which is a whole nother story. But just understand that one huge takeaway. If fat loss is your goal, if that's your goal, we want to reduce the carbohydrates in order for your body to stop turning on insulin. If you're not turning on the hormone that stores fat, guess what? You're not going to store fat. And as a matter of fact, then, and this is where you get this kind of stuff from me, this is what gets me so excited, is that, okay, so insulin, if insulin's not on, then what's happening? Well, there's an opposite hormone. It's called glucagon that your body will produce, which breaks down fat. But it cannot do that in the environment that there's more carbohydrates present. Okay? Super powerful stuff. And it's not that carbs are bad. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of carbohydrates. It's just finding that right ratio for yourself. Finding that right ratio to keep your hormones healthy, to keep you feeling good, energized, because some of these crazy low-carb diets can depress your testosterone production, can cause issues with your energy and your brain health. You know, so it's finding the right ratio of carbohydrates for yourself. And this is really kind of based on looking at your activity levels, your genetics, and all these other things. And I talk about this stuff. I've got a program called the Fat Loss Code, and I give people kind of the manual on figuring this stuff out for themselves in that. But anyway, so as far as the food and the sleep, let me give like a huge nugget of wisdom here. So what was discovered, this is shocking, just shocking stuff, is that just one night of poor sleep, one night of sleep deprivation is enough to make you as insulin resistant as a type 2 diabetic. Okay, just one night. So for us, I'm just there's many different ways to talk about insulin resistance. I'm just going to share the most common one, the most glaring one, which is your body's not picking up the energy you're putting in it, okay, because insulin is not working properly. So you're going to put more energy into it. You're going to have a tendency to want to eat more, and in particular, more carbohydrates, okay, because the process is not happening properly. So eventually your insulin sensitivity is going to get back online. There's going to be a whole bunch of sugar present to start storing fat like crazy. And that's what we run into when we're sleep deprived. All right. Last thing I'll share on this note is when we talked about cortisol before. So a healthy individual, healthy body weight, healthy BMI, when they eat a meal, we're getting about a 5% increase in cortisol. That's normal. Okay, your body's doing that for the purpose, because food is, when you eat, it's like a somewhat stressful event. You're taking something outside of yourself and your body's got to make it into you. You know, it's kind of complicated. So, but what the research shows is that individuals who are overweight or obese, when you eat a meal, you're going to get an upwards of 51% increase in your cortisol. And that's huge, because cortisol's up, melatonin's going to crash. So if you're eating late at night, this is where the whole concept of don't eat it late at night came from. When I ate, I used to eat late at night every single night, and I had the lowest body fat percentage that I'd ever had. You know, and this was back, you know, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. It was 5% body fat. I eat late every single night, and I was just like, this whole eat late at night thing doesn't matter. Well, it does if you've got a goal for weight loss and you are already overweight or obese. So you do want to have a little bit of curfew. And also you can hack this stuff though. You can hack this stuff by changing the macronutrients you're eating. Okay, so eating more fat in the evening, you know, especially if you're eating later and closer to bedtime, because it doesn't have that same kind of hormonal glycemic response. So, and we talk about this in the book as well. There's many different hacks that we can use, but it's more so just understanding that this stuff matters, and we can create a whole different body, you know, a whole different hormonal cascade. So when I'm saying whole different body, it's not like you get a new body, but your body starts to operate, your genes start to express themselves for the best possible version of you, you know, when you start to employ some of the things that we've been talking about.
Man, so many nuggets of information in this whole episode. I hope, I think people are going to be stopping their cars or pulling off to the side of the road to jot some notes down. Hopefully I've taken good enough notes, and as I go through it again, I'll put all this stuff, as you guys know, put it all on the show notes page. I'll have all the links to Shawn's stuff as well. Shawn, I know that you've got tons of stuff going on. You've got the podcast, you've got the book, you've got your speaking engagements, and I know that 2015 is going to be a huge year for you. What are some of the things that you're really excited about for this year?
Wow. Oh, man. I mean, you pretty much summed it up for me. You know, I'm really, really excited about my show. We're about to do our 1 million downloads now.
Wow.
And it's the 90% of that was just in the last 8 months is when everything just kind of skyrocketed. But I've been grinding away behind the scenes, but just kind of like having this presence online, and you know, it's kind of just proliferating so many different things and places, and just it's becoming a phenomenon. It's so powerful. And when I talk about this stuff and people ask, how would something like this even happen? Is just like, do good work, do outstanding work, you know, really step up and give your gift, you know, be yourself and share value, you know, because people really value, funny thing, you know? So right. This year I'm just really dedicated to taking the show to another level, because what we do, and you know this, Jeff, is like we do master classes, you know, and we take an issue like depression or an issue like heart disease, and we break it down to the nth degree in a way that's fun and engaging, so that you can kind of have that edutainment, and so that you can crack the code on this stuff, and you know exactly, because that's one of the things that's missing from conventional medicine right now is when you have an issue come up, they don't tell you how it happened. You know, it's just like, oh, you know, it's just one of those things. And instead of like actually breaking it down for you, because oftentimes, honestly, and I've talked to many physicians, many nurses, they're not taught how cholesterol actually gets created and becomes a problem in your body. They're just not taught that. Mm-hmm. You know, they're taught pharmacology, which is if they have this symptom, give this medication, and also surgery and, you know, whatever kind of specific treatment they're taught. But, you know, it's really based on that first and foremost. So we're giving people the opportunity to master their own health, and that's really empowering, you know. So I'm most excited about that. I'm very excited about the book has been number one on the bestseller list for 6 months. So I'm looking for another 6 months easily by, you know, all the different events coming up and speaking and traveling and meeting people face to face. And I'm excited about that. And lastly, there was one other thing I'm excited about. Just kind of slipped my mind. Oh, yes. Just having the opportunity to share this experience with my family, my kids. I've got 3 kids, and for them to see what's possible, it's so exciting for me because that's my legacy, and it matters to us, especially when you get a little bit older and you start to think about things like that. Like, did I matter? Did I do what was within my potential? And our potential is actually limitless. So once you get close to that and you feel like you're great, you still got another level to go. So it's incredibly exciting for me. And so those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to this year. And I'm on it, man. I am so on it right now.
I know you are, man. And I just want to give you my most, highest regards for what you're doing, give you props for your show and the book and everything. I mean, you honestly have changed the way that I look at some of the fitness stuff, some of the training stuff, some of the things that I do with my clients. And so first I want to just thank you for that, and thank you for coming on and sharing yourself with the 18 Strong audience. You've been a big inspiration to me as far as this podcast and, just reaching out, putting myself out there to try to get guests like you. And, it seems to be working where once you start reaching out like that, people are very receptive, and it's almost shocking how receptive people are like yourself to come on a show like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not kidding. I'm honored, and even for you to hold me in that regard, it means a lot. Because I'm a real person, and I care about people. And for anybody listening too, whatever field you're in, whatever you're passionate about, and as well with you, Jeff, is I'm great. And I'm confident enough to say that I'm great because I care. Mm-hmm. I'm great because I care enough. And it's just really as simple as that, with you reaching more people and getting great guests for your audience, it's coming from you caring. And it's powerful. It puts you in a powerful position to make change, and I'm excited. I'm excited for you too, man. So thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I appreciate it so much.
Well, I appreciate you, and as always, everybody, all the stuff is going to be on the show notes page. Shawn's, the Model Health Show, the Shawn Stevenson Model.com, Sleep Smarter, the book, all that good stuff is going to be linked up for you guys. Shawn, once again, thanks for coming on the 18 Strong podcast, and we will catch up very soon.
All right, thanks so much, Jeff.
All right, man. All right, as you guys can see, Shawn obviously knows this stuff. And just the way that he delivers it and brings it, I think, is such a unique quality to him. And he's really able to deliver a message, educate pretty much anybody with the way that he is able to break down pretty simply the very complex things that are going on in our body and why the nutrition, the sleep, and all that stuff is so important. So special thanks to Shawn for coming on the 18 Strong podcast. And as I mentioned, I just love having guests like this on the show that, maybe bring something a little bit different to the table, something you may not have really even factored into your off season or your training program, or really even, just your lifestyle, what you're doing in your business, all that, and how much your sleep can affect that, your memory, your diet habits, all that good stuff. So once again, I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode with Shawn. And as a special thanks to all of you guys for listening to the 18 Strong podcast, I'm actually going to give away a few copies of his book, Sleep Smarter. And the way that we're going to do this, and this is the first time I've ever done this, so we're giving this a shot. We're going to run a little bit of a raffle on both you can find it, I'll be posting it on the Facebook page, I'll be posting it on Twitter, it'll be on the show notes page, on Shawn's show notes page for the 18 Strong podcast, which is 18strong.com/Shawn-Stevenson, and he spells it SHAWN, and last name is STEVENSON. But again, all that stuff will be on Twitter, on Facebook, all that stuff. And basically gives you an option to go in. There's a couple different ways where you can get entries in to win his book. And I'm going to run the raffle for about a week. I'm going to give away 3 copies of his book, which, again, as he said, has been a bestseller for the last 6 months and many months to come. So I just wanted to say thanks to you guys. And really, I wanted to get his information out there because this book literally has changed the way that I do a lot of things in my weekly routine. and, just the emphasis that I put on, how I'm treating my body as far as from a sleep perspective outside of just the fitness stuff, the diet stuff. So hopefully it can help you guys, and we can support Shawn in the same way. So once again, thank you guys for listening. Keep listening. Love the feedback, love the comments that you guys are giving. And don't forget, check out 18 Strong on Twitter, as we're now on Twitter. And train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.